And we are here for the public hearing of the Wisconsin Incorporation Review Board to discuss the proposed Village of Lisbon. So this public hearing is both in person and virtual. As you know, I am virtual tonight. I would normally be there, but I have COVID right now, so I am still in solitary confinement. Hopefully that'll end shortly, but until that time, I will be joining you virtually. My name is Dawn Vick. I'm the administrator of the Division of Intergovernmental Relations and the chair of the Incorporation Review Board. I'm going to go and ask the other members of the Incorporation Review Board to introduce themselves as well as staff. So Bill, I'm going to start with you. If you could introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Bill Gearing. I'm chairman of the town of Sherman in Sheboygan County and appointed by the Wisconsin Towns Association as a board member.
Thank you, Bill. Mayor Nichols?
Hi, yes, Justin Nichols, Mayor of the City of Manitowoc. I am appointed by the League of Wisconsin Municipalities.
Thank you. And then we do have one board member, Sharon Lear. She is recusing herself from this this matter, so we will not be hearing from her. And then it appears that we are waiting for one additional board person. So in the meantime, Bill Ramsey, could you introduce yourself and your role?
Yeah, my name is Bill Ramsey. I'm Deputy Chief Legal Counsel for the Department of Administration. I'm here just to advise if necessary.
Thank you. And then staff, Renee, if you could introduce yourself and also explain what Eric does.
My name is Renee Powers. I lead the Municipal Boundary Review Program as well as the Plat Review Program. Eric is coming in. He's helping Rich resolve some technical issues.
And Rich is our other board member that we are currently awaiting. We will continue with introductions before we start the actual portion of the hearing, but petitioners, Stan, could you introduce yourself and any petitioners with you?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I hope that you are feeling well with the COVID situation. Yeah, I had it about a month ago, and the only thing happened was I lost my voice, and that was it. But I had to do the same rigmarole that you do, and it's very boring. Anyway, I'm Stan Riffle. I am the lawyer for the hopefully the Village of Lisbon here. My petitioners are not going to be here until later. If they're needed, we'll be giving them a call and advising them whether or not we think that their presence will be necessary. Obviously, they're very supportive of the incorporation effort. Otherwise, they wouldn't be petitioners. We will have a presentation when it is our time, and we will basically try to highlight some of the things that we put in our massive submission to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So the purpose of today's hearing is to elicit testimony from petitioners, Town of Lisbon staff, other interested jurisdictions, area residents, businesses, etc., about the proposed incorporation. This testimony will be used to help the Incorporation Review Board apply the statutory standards in Statute 66.0207 to the facts of the petition. The rules of today, this hearing is not a contested case or court type hearing. There are no rules of evidence, no swearing in or cross-examination of witnesses, no objections, etc. Before you begin your testimony, we ask that you please state your name clearly. In this hearing, only the board and department staff may ask questions. So we will ask questions to the people who are testifying or the petitioners if we have them. Most importantly, no decision on the incorporation petition will be made by the board at this hearing today. Additionally, if anyone wants to submit additional information to the board following this hearing, we will accept submissions for 10 days following the hearing. So that is until October 1st. I'm sorry, August 1st. So 10 days following the hearing will be August 1st, 2022. And the information, comments, and submissions we receive will be made available on our website. Everything is public. So everything we receive, we put on our webpage. There are some handouts that are available in the back of the room in case you don't have them already. There's the agenda that shows how this hearing is organized and some estimated times. The hearing is posted from 4 to 6. We will be here till 6, no matter what. We will be here after 6 if there is continued testimony needed to be taken. So if there's a line of people waiting to give testimony, we will stay as long as we need to. Another handout in the back is the incorporation process flow chart. And that flow chart shows that we are roughly in the middle of the process. And still to come after today are 2 meetings of the Incorporation Review Board to analyze how the petition compares to the statutory standards. And we, the board, must have the determination completed by November 11th, 2022. So that is when we will issue our decision, November 11th. The statutory standards is another handout in the back of the room. This shows the standards with which the Incorporation Review Board will be applying in reviewing this proposed incorporation. Public commenters, if you could relate your comments to these statutory standards, that would help the board in its review. And then finally, the last handout in the back of the room is the speaking registration form. If you would like to present testimony to the board and are physically located at the Richard Young Fire Station, please fill out a speaking registration form and hand it to Renee Powers. This form helps us keep track of who has testified. That form, you'll notice, does have an option for you can just register in for or against the petition. So you do not have to testify, but you can use that form to register your support or your not support of the matter. If you're not physically located at the station and have not filled out a form, please say your name slowly and spell it so that we can fill one out for you. I'll be checking periodically virtually to see if we have anyone who wishes to offer testimony. Let me look, let's see. So I guess Bill Ramsey, our third board member, is not online yet that I see. We do not have, do we have a quorum?
I don't believe so. I'm 2 out of 4.
3 out of 5. 3 out of 5.
Yeah, so I think that's a quorum.
Yeah, I believe that's a quorum.
All right. Since we do still have the quorum, we are going to continue, and we will start with the next item on the agenda, which is the presentation by the petitioners. So Stan.
Getting the PowerPoint up and running. One thing you'll note about this cover page is if you go back to the 2011 submission, absolutely, you're going to come on this side so you don't have to look at me. Perfect. By the way, I didn't start out by thanking Chairperson Vic and the board members that are present for joining us today. I wish it would be here rather than virtually, but better virtually than not at all. And I'm saddened to hear that Ms. Lier had to recuse herself, but I do understand the rationale behind that. Okay, we ready? All right. So I was pointing out, if you looked at the cover page on the 2011 submission, you would have seen some farm scenes there. You don't see them now. Going back to 2011, some of you were here. You were here, Eric. I was in a different role at that time. I represented the village of Sussex in opposition to the incorporation petition back in 2011. And so much has changed between then and now. Fact of the matter is, I still represent the village of Sussex today. And the village president is here. So much has changed that now the village of Sussex has enthusiastically supported me representing the town of Lisbon in its effort to incorporate because of so much that has happened between then and now. And that really is the theme of this incorporation. You all have seen me for the last, well, since around 1997 or 98, going back to Pewaukee days. I've been involved in this area law a lot, and obviously learned a lot over that period of time. But I can tell you, I've not seen a petition that more fully meets all of the criteria for under the incorporation statute than this one. Back in 2011, well, first of all, the town's twice petitioned for incorporation, back in 1979 and back in 2011. And this board made the appropriate determination in 79, in my view, in my expertise, that the town did not meet 4 of the 6 criteria in 79. And in 2011, the village argued, and this incorporation, Village of Sussex argued, and this board agreed that it did not meet 3 of the criteria at that time. Going into this incorporation effort, I knew it was going to be imperative to address those 3 criteria and show how in 2011, the town was not poised to meet the standards, and now they absolutely, without question, are, or it is. And it is because of everything that's happened between then and now that was completely unanticipated. On the compactness and homogeneity criteria, you're going to hear about how the town of Lisbon has worked with its neighbors to correct many, or virtually all of the concerns that the board raised in its determination at that time. I will talk later on about the fact that there are segmented aspects to the town that can never, ever, under any circumstances, be changed. And they will always be there, but that is not an impediment to meeting the statutory criteria based upon the actual determinations that this board has made in the past. And there are very strong parallels that have been drawn primarily to our neighbor to the south, who I represented in its 1999 incorporation of the city of Pewaukee. And I should point out the 3 criteria that you did determine were met back in 2011 have only, the town has strengthened its position in those areas. And so there probably, we will address those very, very briefly here today, because you're going to hear from Chrissy DeMaster, who is a consultant, planning consultant, and Sean Malarkey, who is the town of Lisbon's planner on a daily basis. They will fill in the gaps with regard to most of these criteria. Secondly, you found that the territory beyond the core was not met, and it was based on the fact that the growth and eating up of the territory that was then available to be developed was thought that it would not be developed as rapidly as it actually has. Now there are virtually 2,400 acres left in the town for development. which is roughly 14% of the entire territory of the town to be incorporated. I'll be pointing out some of the recent approvals by this board where this criteria was met even with as much as 60% undeveloped territory. And so I will deal with that later on. Finally, the impact on the metropolitan community. The determination back in 2011 was that criteria was not met. And I will address later on the fact that it's undoubtedly met. The town is a leader in this metropolitan community in terms of providing services, interacting with its municipal neighbors, Lisbon, Merton, and obviously now Sussex with the cooperative boundary plan. We are coming right off of the approval of the Department of Administration of that cooperative boundary plan. I'm hoping that the board members are familiar with that plan. I know we talked about it when we were here the last time. It really is the kingpin in making this all happen. It is the last piece of the puzzle in terms of answering all of the questions that have been raised with regard to the town now meeting all criteria, and it's time for the town of Lisbon to be the next incorporated municipality in Waukesha County. As you all know, we have had a spate of recent incorporations. Richfield to the north, Summit, Vernon, Waukesha are all villages now. It really is a situation where the eastern half of Waukesha County is already operating, every town virtually. I'll leave town of Waukesha out of it because they got their own problems. But in terms of the provision of services, in terms of being an urbanized community, the town of Lisbon meets every single criteria and way exceeds it. So I'm going to turn it over to Christy and to Sean to go through our presentation. We're going to try not to go and do a deep dive into the two huge binders that we have submitted for your consideration, but we just want to highlight where we're at today in the town of Lisbon. Thank you. If there are any questions at any point in time by any board member, please just, or staff, just speak up, and you can ask any of us, or you can ask me in the middle to come back up if it's an issue you think that you want to ask me about. So any questions so far?
No, thank you, Stan.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sean Malarkey. I am with Foth Infrastructure and Environment. We are the planners, consulting planners for the town of Lisbon. So I just wanted to start here, my part of this, talking about Lisbon and the regional context. On the left-hand side of the screen here, you can see that Lisbon is here, the town of Lisbon, with Sussex in the middle. As Stan mentioned, in eastern Waukesha County, this is the dividing line between western Waukesha County and eastern Waukesha County. And it's this area, including the town of Lisbon, is within southeastern Wisconsin's Regional Plan Commission's urbanized area. At least the vast majority of the town of Lisbon is. And as you can see, and it's a little bit faint on the screen, but all of the white, sort of the white area, are already incorporated villages and cities. And the only town, Lisbon is the only town that remains in eastern Waukesha County, aside from the town of Brookfield here at the southeast. And you can see that also continues as you get, this is the boundary between Waukesha and Washington County. And as you get north, Richfield and Germantown and north Mequon, they're also cities and villages. So you can see as you expand out from Milwaukee, the city of Milwaukee, there's a pretty defined boundary of incorporated communities, excluding the town of Lisbon. Lisbon currently shares boundaries with 9 different growing communities, which is a fairly high amount. That's not even including the ones sort of kitty corner at the corners that just touch at the point. So there's a lot of development pressure. There's a lot of things happening. The town of Lisbon is well connected to the surrounding communities, as well as the highway and freeway transportation system. You can see there's 4145 here to the northeast, and then I-94 in blue here to the south. So it's well situated, and it's a very desirable location to live and to do business. On the right-hand side, you can see sort of a close-up aerial. This is the boundary of Lisbon. In the middle is Sussex. Again, this is the adjusted boundary as a result of the cooperative plan. It's a little faint, but you can see all the developed subdivisions here throughout the town. The white areas that you see are all the quarries. So that, the town of Lisbon is known for its quarries, and there's quite a few areas that are currently quarried and will continue to do so into the future. That alone takes a lot of Lisbon's land out of play. If you look at the already developed subdivisions, and then most of the green areas that you see here are environmentally constrained lands, whether it's environmental corridors, wetlands, floodplains, etc. So that leaves obviously some land to be developed. Stan mentioned that it's about 2,400 acres of developable land that isn't yet in process. So that is not for a town this size in total boundary. That's not a ton of land left to be developed. And I'll talk more about some specific numbers coming up. So now I want to talk a little bit more about the planning and development context and Lisbon's relationship working regionally with others. Lisbon has a long history of planning. Way back in 1949, the town adopted village powers, and then in 1960 adopted subdivision and zoning ordinances, which is continually updated for best practices going forward. The first land use plan was adopted in 1996, and then the town was part of Waukesha County's multi-jurisdictional comprehensive planning effort, which included the vast majority of municipalities in the county. That was done in 2009. And the town recently updated their comprehensive plan in 2021 and 2022. And so the town's ordinances and plans, the main emphasis for that is one, to protect its rich natural resource base. There's a lot of land in the town that is environmentally sensitive, but to balance that with housing, economic development, recreational opportunities, provided they're compatible with the town's resources. And finally, to provide high quality infrastructure and services in a cost-effective manner. So transitioning from a town to a village, Lisbon plans to continue all 3 of those points. Nothing will change. The comprehensive plan that was updated between 2021 and 2022, the main focus of the update here was to look at population projections, population projections, and kind of get a better handle going forward. There was limited data when we did this. The town will be looking back again once all the census data is out, once the Department of Administration releases all your population projections. But we think regardless, we have a pretty good handle on the trends and the way things are moving. The other thing we wanted to do with the major update was look at the land use plan as part of the comprehensive plan and look at the areas that were still planned for rural density or rural ag. What you're looking at here is the county's comprehensive plan. Once the town made its changes, and a lot of changes involved looking back at some of the land that was planned for rural that happened to be developed. If the submittal that was done in 2011, the town's comprehensive plan at the time was a bit outdated. There was a lot of land that was still planned for rural, but happened to have already been developed. So it wasn't realistic. It didn't match reality. So we think we did a good job of cleaning that up to match actual densities that are out there, as well as looking at pockets and areas adjacent to those areas that's compatible going forward. So after the town did adopt the plan, the county also adopted. We work closely with Waukesha County staff to do this. So their plan is basically a mirror of the town's plan. There was also a robust public participation component. The town actually contacted every property owner that was going to have their property changed from one category to another. We had a good turnout here at Town Hall where we met individually with property owners with maps to talk about the changes, and it was overwhelmingly positive. Some of the big changes I mentioned was changing a bunch of rural residential to low density residential and suburban density residential. I should note that the low density residential category, despite the name, is actually more dense than the suburban. It's just it's nomenclature from the county because our plan is born from the county's plan. So looked at that. We looked at expanding one of the quarry operations east here in the southeast portion of town. There's a new mixed use center that's planned for the center of town along 164, just north of the existing commercial park. Just for reference, we are down here today. And that's it for that. I can come back to that if there's additional questions. The park plan, the town also recently updated their park plan in 2020. The time frame for this plan is from 2021 all the way through 2026. The town has an extensive system of parks, which includes 163 total acres of parkland, 5 neighborhood parks, 1 community park with a full range of amenity. In addition, this plan is in lockstep with planning for the future and in 3 different areas of the town based on population growth or future population growth. There are 3 additional neighborhood parks that are planned to support that. We are cognizant of other jurisdictions and other planning jurisdictions. The town works closely with Waukesha County on an ongoing basis. Waukesha County's Park and Open Space Plan does apply. In Lisbon, and particularly Ryan Park, which straddles the town of Lisbon and city of Pewaukee. There's also plans to expand Bark River Trail from Lisbon's community park through the northwest part of town. In addition, Waukesha County's Land and Water Resource Management Plan does apply to the town of Lisbon. There's, as I mentioned, natural resources are prevalent here, including the Bark River and Upper Fox River watersheds, which are could potentially be impacted from development. And so Lisbon is one of 13 Waukesha County communities that's required to submit phase 1 MS4 drainage permits, stormwater drainage permits. And realizing that there are so many environmentally constrained lands, that really shapes, again, the town's plans and ordinances. We're cognizant of that, and we understand that we're not only a town in a vacuum, but a town in a region that's impacted by these resources. So one way that the town does that is either the very dense development is sewered. We do have sanitary sewer in a portion of the town, or the typical lot size is about 1 acre to make sure that the groundwater recharge and so on is protected in the future. We spent a great deal of time looking at development and development maps. And so this is a map that I put together that sort of paints a picture of past development, current development, and future development. The village of Sussex here is in the middle in gray, and then all the surrounding communities are also in gray. And so the first thing you can see here is that all of the green on this map are environmentally constrained lands, which again includes wetlands, floodplains, environmental corridors, isolated areas, other significant land to be preserved in rights of way. And I'd mentioned that in many places, environmental corridors, it's okay to develop in them, and really as a standard in Waukesha County, the development standard is about 1 unit per 5 acres if you don't have anywhere else to develop. But virtually all of the environmental corridors in the town of Lisbon is inundated with wetlands. So it's not really an option. So in fact, that if you see green here, there's a pretty good chance, unless very detailed studies can prove otherwise, that land is not developable. The dark gray areas are all lands that are currently used or planned for quarrying operations. So everything else that's left is developed or can be developed. And on one side, or one of the colors, it kind of transitions from like a pale yellow to a darker orange to a darker brown. The yellow represents all of the development, residential development that happened prior to 2011, which would have been the last time the town petitioned for incorporation. The orange areas are things that have happened since then between 2011 and present. And then the darker brown areas are everything that's in the works. Everything that's at a plant has been presented to the town at some point, is in the approval process, or is being platted, or the infrastructure is actually being constructed. So there's quite a lot of that going on since 2011. Conversely, if you look at the blue, that's non-residential development. The light blue is non-residential that's happened prior to 2011. The next shade is 2011 to present, and then the darker blue areas are things that are in the works, have been actually presented to the town and is in the approval phases. This area here is the town's TID. You can see it's all colored in except for this one little white spot. This map was done prior to this land actually being taken. So that's already spoken for. So the town's TID is actually completely underway at this point. The red boundary here represents the 1 square mile, the densest square mile in the town. I believe there is, I'm check my notes here, 528 units, housing units in that 1 square mile. That is roughly the boundary of the sanitary sewer area as well. So that's where that applies, or there's about 1,350 population within that area. So to recap, the undevelopable land in the town, as mentioned, is about 2,400 acres. I'm sorry, the undevelopable land is the green. That's 52% of the entire town. That's the green and the quarry areas. Already developed or in process is 34%, which leaves only 14% of the town to be developed, or about 2,400 acres. Very briefly, these are all of the subdivisions that are currently underway or in process in the town. There's 10 subdivisions here for a total of 374 lots that are coming forward as we speak. Just to touch on TID number 1, again, this was created in 2008. It is on the east part of town, just north of Silver Spring, County Highway VV. Some of the past developments up here, including Casey's General Store, Silver Spring School, Wyckoff Color. There's a bunch being currently developed, including that one property that's now spoken for. So essentially the entire 139 acres is developed or under development. Nothing remains. That's essentially being closed out in a period of 5 years, which I think is a testament to a couple things. One, the town's administration and proactive effort to actually go after these businesses and fill up the TID. And one, just the desirability of Lisbon in terms of a place to locate a business. I mentioned the town center and the land use plan. This is a preliminary concept that has been put forth for the town center. The town center does actually apply to both sides of 164, which is here. This is a plan for just the southwest side. And it includes preservation of environmental, includes commercial mixed with duplex residential, single family residential, and then even a spot for future location for the village hall, for expansion of the village hall, a public park, and so on. Besides the development I mentioned in the TID, other locations in the town, just a couple of other recent developments. Quick Trip just went in, just opened last week at the north side of town on 164 and Q. Groundcrafters Landscaping is underway as well. So things are happening in the town, and things are busy. Christine?
Thank you. I'm Christy DeMaster with Trilogy Consulting, and I work to put together the report for the town with lots of help from Sean and Administrator Kathy Nicholas and Stan. So I just want to hit on a couple more things that have been going on in the town since 2011, and then just touch briefly on the criteria that have to be considered by the board and where we believe we meet those criteria. With all of the substantial growth and development going on in the town over the last 10 years, there has been quite a bit of increase in property value in the town. This just represents the last 5 years, so we're not even going back to 2011, but just within the last 5 years, the property value of the town as a whole has increased by 34%. And I wanted to point out too that commercial property value has actually increased faster than the pace for the town as a whole at 47%. And overall, there's been a little over $100 million worth of just new construction. And where that puts the town of Lisbon in comparison to other villages in Waukesha County is very interesting. If it were a village today, it would have the third highest equalized value of any village in Waukesha County. Very comparable to its neighbor, the village of Sussex, and as well as the village of Heartland. There's also been a lot going on in terms of regional cooperation between Lisbon and its neighbors over the last 10 years, since the last time that we were here before the board. So you approved the Village of Merton Town of Lisbon Cooperative Plan in 2020. The Village of Sussex Town of Lisbon Cooperative Plan just earlier this year. And there have been updates as part of that process with Sussex to the sanitary sewer and water agreements that I'll talk a little bit about. Since 2021, Lisbon and Sussex have been cooperating on some police administrative support services. And since 2016, the town of Lisbon has been actually plowing and salting for the village of Merton with its DPW staff. Not noted on here, well, I did note it on here actually. They have a regional compost site that serves Lisbon and the towns of Merton and the village of Merton. And I understand that since this application was filed, that they are now serving also the village of Lannon. And the town of Lisbon has extensive fire and EMS agreements with surrounding communities. And a lot of these date back to the early 2000s, but there have been some newer ones since 2011. The town provides advanced life support services to both the village of Merton and the village of Richfield, are two of the more notable ones that have been in place recently. And I also understand that Sussex and Lisbon have reached some agreement recently on sharing the cost for park maintenance in the town of Lisbon because of the substantial number of Sussex residents that use parks within Lisbon. So the Sussex Lisbon Cooperative Plan, I want to focus on that one because that is a very extensive plan and it really speaks to how the town has worked to improve its compactness and homogeneity. So that was approved in April of this year. And there was substantial transfers of territory to create more regular boundary lines. And also along with that, there was transfers of multiple street segments really to avoid and get rid of those situations where there's alternating segments that are maintained by either the town or the village. And so that's going to improve both communities' ability to maintain their streets in a more manageable fashion. Also, the town agreed on the south side of Sussex, eventually when the land develops along the southern border there, to provide a connection between State Trunk Highway 164 and Executive Drive, which is within Sussex. So that will improve connectivity for the village as well. The village agreed to support incorporation for Lisbon, and they've agreed to continually discussing cooperation in services, which we already see is really having an effect. So this is a map that shows the post cooperative plan boundaries. And I just wanted to mention, as I said, this was a very comprehensive and very extensive agreement that had some give and take from both parties to the agreement to the benefit of both. So Lisbon transferred 512 acres to the village of Sussex, most of which was undeveloped. And then Sussex also did transfer some quarry parcels from right down in this area here from the village to the town of Lisbon. And that has made it possible for the town of Lisbon to get an agreement with Land and Stone to provide funding for municipal water service and properties surrounding that area that may be impacted in the future. And this map reflects the updated sanitary sewer service agreement between Sussex and Lisbon. And I just want to point out a couple things on this one here. So the green areas are areas within Lisbon that will be served with sanitary sewer service and remain in Lisbon. Again, as Sean mentioned, this is the sanitary district. Right here, you have Willow Springs Mobile Home Park, and that's currently receiving service as well. TID number 1 is receiving service. Down here, you've got this building and the Richmond School that have service currently. And then the rest of these areas represent areas of future extension. And under those agreements, which are fairly longstanding, the town purchased 891,000 gallons per day of treatment capacity. The sanitary district has 310 gallons per day of capacity. And as of 2020, which was the last time that Sussex updated its sewer rates, combined, the town and the sanitary district were using about 169,000 gallons per day. So there is quite a bit of excess capacity remaining under those agreements for future growth and development. This map represents the areas that Sussex agreed to provide with retail water service in Lisbon. Right now, this is TID 1. This area is receiving water service. The other areas here and here would be future. This reflects the pre-cooperative plan boundaries. So this area here is now in the town of Lisbon, and Land and Stone has agreed to provide funding to offset the cost of water service for this area surrounding the quarries. So I want to just talk briefly about each of the criteria that Lisbon needs to meet and how it does in fact meet these criteria to become a village. And I'm going to hit on these briefly, but obviously if you have questions, please feel free to stop me at any point. I want to talk about tax revenue, but not spend a lot of time on it, because this is one that the department found that the town easily met last time in 2011, and the town has only expanded its service offerings and is in even better financial shape than it was at that point in time. So you can see here the town has a very substantial range of services that it offers and a pretty substantial staff. And one thing I just wanted to point out on here is that the department, or the fire department, has 7 full-time employees, which is pretty unusual for town, and that it does provide advanced life support services and has actually doubled its staff in the last 10 years. They also have a very robust capital improvement program. They do maintain and replace equipment on a regular basis. The main thing that's included in this upcoming CIP is new fire station to replace the original fire station #1. So they've got about $3.5 million built into their CIP for that project. And working on new salt storage this year. So they're doing a lot of capital improvements on an ongoing basis. Just a few highlights here. The revenues have been stable to increasing. They have a very low tax rate, so they could provide a much higher level of services even than they do now and still have a very reasonable tax rate. They've got sinking funds put aside for equipment replacement, a very high bond rating for their debt issuance that they did last year, a substantial amount of working capital, and only 9.9 million in general obligation debt with remaining capacity of over 66 million. So clearly lots of capacity here. You know, they've already provide a robust range of services at a low tax rate and have very strong financial capacity. So territory beyond the core is one of the criteria that was not in that last time, and just want to talk about how we looked at this one. And based on all of the growth and development that's been occurring in Lisbon over the past 10 years, clearly at this point in time, Lisbon does meet this criteria. So back in 2011, the board noted that there was really very moderate population projections for the town at that time, between 2010 and 2030. I didn't run those all the way out because, as Sean mentioned, we don't have updated population projections at this point in time. But as you can see over here, in 2011, the town was projected to be at 10,000, just over 10,000 by 2020. In fact, they're at 10,400 and had another estimated growth of over 250 more people between 2020 and 2021, which is really a reflection of large number of building permits being issued, a lot of new residential development underway in the town. With the boundary adjustments, we're estimating that population now is minus the properties that have gone into the village of Sussex at about 10,597. But I just want to point out too that this current population for the area as a whole almost exceeds what was originally projected for the 2035 population. So the projections back in 2011, 2012, 13, that era were we're quite understating it by quite a bit. So as Sean noted, we did spend a lot of time putting together this map indicating what's developed, in process, and remaining for the future. And this table shows a summary of the land use acres by development type and also by development status. So that's where we get the 2,400 acres of available planned for different types of development that is still remaining to be developed. So of that 2,400 acres, you've got about 971 acres that is planned for rural density. And that's primarily up here in the southwest corner of the town. And that's really where you see the remaining tracts of farmland is up in that area. About 1,300 acres that's planned for residential development. And I have a note here on the majority of that is planned for suburban density development similar to these existing developed areas in the town. And then about 146 for non-residential that remains to be developed. So that's where we were coming up with the 2,400 acres or the 14%. And the other thing I just wanted to point out on this too, anything that's in white is in that undeveloped category. And we don't have a solid number on this, but you'll notice there, a lot of that is these little scraps of land on existing properties. A lot of these ones, like up in this area, may already have a house on a larger property. So the only way that that would be developed is if they divide their land, which may or may not occur. So there's mostly scattered infill development other than that northwest corner. So back in 2011, there was some difficulty, I guess, in determining how much land remained vacant and developable, but the determination was that there was about 5,500 acres. Based on current conditions and a lot more, I would say, detailed look at this issue, we've determined that there's those 2,400 acres remaining. And I just want to point out too, I think it's clear that Lisbon has secured plenty of sewer and water service for areas that require such service. There's really a very substantial amount of acres in development currently. And as Stan will talk about later, that this compares very favorably to other recently approved incorporations in terms of having less remaining developable land. So the other criteria I want to talk about is characteristics of the territory, homogeneity and compactness. And that was another one of the criteria that the town did not meet last time. So I want to talk about some of the items that were mentioned in that determination and our view of those, how things have changed or how this compares to other approved incorporations. One of the things that was pointed out is that the town students were served by two different high schools, Arrowhead High School and Sussex Hamilton. That is still the case, but we wanted to just point out that Lisbon is really part of a very integrated metropolitan area, and that is not uncommon amongst municipalities in a similar situation. And again, just a lot of parallels with the city of Pewaukee to the south here, which actually feeds 4 separate high schools. In terms of cohesion and community identity, this was another area where there was some question about whether Lisbon had a well-developed community identity. But I think it's very clear that Lisbon does in fact have a well-developed cohesion and community identity. The town holds numerous community events throughout the year, and there's more of them listed actually in the report, but these are just the ones that are town-only events. So they have Winterfest, Earth Day celebration, community festival. The town developed a 9/11 memorial, which you'll see outside of town hall. And then the fire department holds quite a few events. So that's just kind of a little sampling. There's more information in the report. And these events are attended pretty heavily, pretty widely from others in the area. The town is also home to a number of sports clubs, I guess, and these are pretty unique to the area, like the Ausblick Ski Club. It's been here for quite some time. Menominee Falls Saddle Club, Gun Club, Bowman's Club, and various youth sports associations use the town's parks. So there's people coming from Sussex, from Lannon, from Menominee Falls, from Merton, and also from the town that are using these facilities. So it occupies somewhat of a unique niche in this metropolitan community in terms of having so many recreational opportunities available. Besides the clubs, there's also 3 golf courses, the driving range. So there's a lot of different opportunities that are present in Lisbon. And it has churches within the town dating all the way back to 1846. In terms of commercial development and shopping, back in 2011, there was some opposition from residents to having more businesses being developed in Lisbon. There was a study done by some students at UWM urban planning program looking at the concept of a community center in the area where the town center is now being proposed. And there was opposition from town residents to the idea of that type of development at that time. And it was also noted that Lisbon residents shop in other communities. So those are kind of the key things that were pointed out at in 2011. So I guess a lot of redundancy here, but just to point out that things have not transpired as were predicted back in 2011. The town, in fact, has had quite a lot of new non-residential development. As of between 2011 and 2022, there's been a 67.6% increase in the total amount of land developed for commercial uses, another 111, almost 12 acres. And I believe that doesn't include the remaining 26 acres in TID number 1 that's now in process as well. So TID 1 is basically built out. Town's looking at a town center development that was not, essentially rejected back in 2011. Now they're working on that. And as far as shopping goes, we acknowledge that there's not a lot of shopping opportunities in Lisbon per se. I mean, you can get you have a skin spa, you can join a fitness club in Lisbon, you have Quick Trip and Casey's General Store for day-to-day needs. Martial arts studio, you can get your hair cut in Lisbon. There's your auto repaired, so there's a lot of those kinds of things available, but it's not a big regional retail shopping center. But we believe that is not a disqualifying circumstance in this case. As I said before, Lisbon's part of a really integrated metropolitan region, and you've got large retail centers in the village of Pewaukee, in Waukesha, in Brookfield, and really residents of this whole area utilize those same shopping centers. And again, there's a parallel here with the city of Pewaukee, which both Lisbon and Pewaukee have really chosen to focus on locally owned businesses, office, contractors, quarries in the case of Lisbon, and not go for the big box and the retail type shopping centers. And really it would be poor planning to try and duplicate that here. It was also noted in 2011 that this kind of speaks to both the territory beyond the core and homogeneity and compactness, but that noted that there was not a lot of new suburban density residential development shown on the town's comprehensive plan at that point in time. Since then, the town has updated that land use plan to reflect the reality, which is that there's been a lot of infill development going on at those suburban type densities. And the town is also currently planning for duplex units and medium density residential in the town center. So again, with that comprehensive plan update, it's really reflecting the reality that the entire remainder of the town is building out within those areas planned for residential at a suburban or medium or high density. I'm going to give this back to Stan here at this point. Homogeneity and compactness. In the last one, they determined that the village was really fragmented and into different areas, and the cooperative plan with Sussex has addressed that issue.
Thank you. Stan, before you begin, I just wanted to let everyone know that Rich Eggleston, our other incorporation review board member, joined us about 10-15 minutes ago. So he has been here for the last part of the update. So Stan, if you'd like to continue.
Welcome, Rich. Hello. You're on mute. Never mind. So obviously we addressed the homogeneity and compactness in great detail in our submissions. And in discussion with staff, there really is one problematic area that was raised in 2011 that still exists. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that the village has addressed all of the other concerns in terms of every other area that you'd want to talk about with homogeneity and compactness, other than the fact that there are basically several areas of the town of Lisbon that are separated by the hole in the donut, as I call it. Obviously, the issues associated with the fragmented boundaries between the village and the town, village of Sussex and the town, have been absolutely addressed in this monumental cooperative boundary plan with the village of Sussex. And it was done immediately. So those areas are already, those fragmented areas are already in the village of Sussex. There was some concern on the part of the department staff related to the fact that in some other cooperative boundary plans, they've seen that these transfers occurred over time. The village and the town felt, and it was a condition of reaching this whole colossal agreement that dealt with provision of sewer, water, transfer of lands from the village to the town. All that had to be predicated on getting that issue fixed immediately so that it was not of concern in the future and it just didn't sit out there lingering. And so that was a decision that was made. I know that there was some angst on the part of some administration, department administration personnel, but we had to do it that way. Now, there was a lingering issue there related to whether or not the promise that was made to the residents related to covering some very large special assessments that were going to immediately hit when they came into the village related to the provision of sewer and water facilities the promise would be kept. And the promise has been kept. And the agreements are in place to cover all of those special assessments for those individuals that were forced into the village of Sussex as a result of the cooperative boundary plan. I wanted to make sure that Chairperson Vic, that I address that because you have not heard that. It has happened. It is done.
All right, thank you.
So
Thank you.
how do we go to the next slide here? That leads us to the biggest issue I think the staff has with this this particular criteria, and that relates to the fact that if you look at the town of Lisbon here, you can see the hole in the donut here, that you have 3/4 of an area around the north, northwest, and west of the village, and east of the village, and then you have the area down in the southeast. I wanted to point out, because this is a worse situation was facing the Incorporation Review Board back in 1999 when they had to look at the incorporation of the city of Pewaukee. And it is a much worse situation because you essentially have in the city of Pewaukee, the northwest territory that is 100% cut off from the rest of the town because Pewaukee Lake and the village. And then you've got the southwest portion, and then you've got the entire eastern portion, which is, I think, much more problematic than what we have here. And the department recognized back in the determination for the city of Pewaukee, and I think this is solid law. I think it's 100% right on the books, or right on the, hit it right on the head, that when you look at this particular criteria, you have to look at a holistic approach to it. As a whole, does it meet the criteria? And in that determination, the the board harkened back to the Pleasant Prairie determination, which it stated Pleasant Prairie is clear regarding the allowable flexibility and factors to be considered in determining homogeneity and compactness. Homogeneity has a meaning apart and in addition to the factors listed in 66016-1A. It went on to say, therefore, flexibility primarily applies to consideration of additional non-enumerated factors rather than flexibility in elimination, removal, or reduction of an enumerated factor below some acceptable reasonable level. So it's a matter of applying reasonableness in a holistic fashion. And the board went on to state that even though the situation presented may not be entirely perfect, when taken as a whole, the facts support a finding of homogeneity and compactness. And that really is a situation we have here. You tasked the town of Lisbon back in 2011 to take care of every problem that you could take care of. Bring the entire community together, bring the entire region together, and then come back to us. And that has happened. You don't see anybody, I don't think that there's any opposition. If there is, there's 3 people here that may or may not want to speak. I think only one of them turned in a slip. But the bottom line is, if you look at this entire situation and this particular criteria in a holistic approach, you're going to come up with the identical determination that you made when you said the city of Pewaukee can and should be incorporated. So the board finally looked at the importance of the development plan for Waukesha County, and it could not be overemphasized. The county board approved the land use plan that carefully integrated the town's plan, and this has happened this year, I believe. So the county's plan has adopted our plan, and it takes into consideration the economic, social, and physiological resources of the county. And so in Waukesha or Pewaukee as well, you took into account that the city of Pewaukee, if you look at the area of the south there, that's now the city of Waukesha, ceded 2 square miles, I think, to even up the border there to the city of Waukesha. And that was taken into account as well to clean up the borders for compactness purposes, which we have already accomplished here with the advent of our cooperative boundary plan with the village of Sussex, but also the homogeneity aspect of this thing to clearly have a dividing line in terms of the homogeneity of what is going to be the village of Lisbon. I can't address the fact that over years, because of the economic aspects of our society, the village of Sussex has grown into what it is. We can't undo that. Can't undo the fact that the village of Merton encroaches into what was formerly part of the town of Lisbon. But taken as a whole, in a holistic fashion, we meet that criteria probably better than the city of Pewaukee did when you found that they met the incorporation criteria. So, did I just hit this? Oh no, it's down here. Nope. So we get to the impact on the metropolitan community. I think what you've heard up to this point in time speaks to the fact that the impact on the metropolitan community between 2011 and today has absolutely, it's night and day. You basically, again, charge the town and the town with the fact that, you know what, you've got all these naysayers in you got Menominee Falls back then, you got the village of Sussex, you got Waukesha County saying, no, this is bad for the metropolitan community. Between then and now, the town has done everything that it possibly could to become not only a good member, but a leader in the metropolitan community, and they have. through the agreements that you've heard about, through the increase in the services that have been provided, such that they can be an exporter of services rather than an importer of services, if you will. And they have. But I'll close with the fact that the best gauge, and I've never seen this before, of whether or not there's a positive impact on the metropolitan community is what the members of the metropolitan community say it is. I've never seen a situation where you have resolutions supporting the incorporation of a town from all of its neighbors. Resolutions for the village of Sussex, the village of Heartland, the village of Merton, the village of Pewaukee, the village of Lannon, the village of Richfield, the village of Menominee Falls, and a letter of support from the city of Pewaukee. The most strident opponent now is the best friend, the village of Sussex. And so there can be no better determination of a positive impact on the metropolitan community than all of the neighbors saying, this is the time, this is now. Town of Lisbon should be a village. Any questions?
I know
Thank
I
you.
don't have any questions. Are there
Thank you.
questions in the room?
Oh, not me.
All right. Thank you for joining us, Rich. All
I've-
right.
I've heard, this is very interesting. I mean, it's what we've been talking about in a whole other parts of the state. So this is what we're about, I think.
Yes, thank you. Testimony slips. So Renee, do you have any testimony slips? Anyone who'd like to offer testimony in the room at this time?
I do have one slip from Anthony Ladoni, sorry.
All right, Mr. Ladoni, you're up. Thank you.
Yep. My name is Anthony Ladoni, and I am the Village of Sussex president. The Village of Sussex has reached an agreement with the town of Lisbon to resolve decades of disputes between the communities. As part of those negotiations, it was very important for the town to be able to determine its future through incorporation. The village understands and respects their desire. The agreement is now in effect, and as promised, the village is here today to support the town of Lisbon's incorporation effort. The village supports the town's incorporation petition, has passed a resolution indicating the support for their incorporation, and hopes the state will consider the town's application favorably. We also consider this to be the best circumstance for all citizens involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to offer testimony? Is there anyone online, virtual, who would like to offer testimony at this time? All right, we will be here until 6 o'clock to take any additional testimony. We'll stand in recess until we get our next testimony slip, or at least we'll check in every, say, 10 minutes. So it's 5:10 now. We'll check in every 10 minutes, but we'll stand informal unless we receive additional testimony slips. Just remember that you are invited to submit comments online after this hearing through August 1st. So if you'd like to do that, the email address that you would send those to is on the bottom of the agenda. So you can send the comments to the Wisconsin Municipal address on the bottom of the agenda. So you can send those there, and that will reach all the committee members, plus those comments will be posted online then as well. So we are going to stand informal until about 5:20, where I'll do another check-in unless we receive any additional testimony slips in the meantime. So that is where we will be, just standing informal, just waiting, and this will continue until 6 o'clock. No. To see if any additional hearing slips have come in. I don't believe anyone has entered, but Renee, just double check and tell me if any additional slips have been submitted. Or Eric, you're on mute, Town of Lisbon, so.
She said there were not any slips.
Okay, thank you. I will check back then in say 15 minutes, and just so you know, Stan will offer you an opportunity at about 5:50 just to do any concluding thoughts before we adjourn at 6. All right, so I will check back in about 15 minutes. Thank you. All right, it's 5:35. Just checking to see if any additional testimony slips have been submitted in the room.
There is one, Dawn.
Okay,
Joel Osterman.
all right, go ahead, Mr. Osterman.
Oh, sorry.
So I was the town chairman for 6 years and the board for 8 years, immediately before Joe, our current
Gotcha.
chairman.
Got it.
My comments are pretty brief. I think it's time for Lisbon to become a village. It's clear now that we meet the requirements as is shown in our submittal. Unlike previous incorporation efforts, we now have the support of our neighboring municipalities. Lisbon is a special place, and our residents want to secure our long-term existence. Lisbon's incorporation would be positive for our citizens as well as for the neighboring communities, as is evident by the support received from the incorporated communities, municipalities that we have bought. I ask that you review the information submitted and support the incorporation. Yeah, approve it. That's pretty much all I have to say. And you're one of the petitioners? Yes. So I think Joe was, I was stated earlier, but he's just out of town today.
Okay, thank you very much. Any additional slips?
Dawn, this is Bill Gearing. I have a question of you.
Please.
If we're going to continue to have one more than a quorum until 6, I would like to leave now because I have another commitment in Juneau with the Towns Association meeting. However, if you need me to stay, I will stay. There's no problem with that.
So Mayor Nichols and
I'll
Rich, are you able to stay?
Yes.
All right, and Mayor Nichols? Yes. Okay. So yes, Bill, you can leave. We will have a quorum until 6.
Okay, thank you very much for that accommodation.
All right, so now I will stand in recess for about 15 or so more minutes. Then I will just give the concluding remarks before I check to see if there's anyone who wants to testify. Before we go into stand formal, let me just ask once again for those who are attending virtually, if anyone virtual would like to offer testimony, now is your opportunity. Okay, hearing none, I'm going to stand informal till just a few minutes before 6 o'clock, unless we get someone who comes in. Thank you. I did notice that we had someone join us virtually, and I just wanted to let that person know that you are free to offer testimony at this time. We are standing informal until additional members submit a testimony slip or would like to offer testimony virtually. So if you are attending virtually, you can take the opportunity to offer testimony now. There's also opportunity to submit written comments after the meeting through August 1st. So anyone online virtually would like to give any testimony?
Hi, this is Chairman Osterman. I was just able to get on Zoom here, so just want to thank everybody for coming out here today and holding the hearing. And I was not able to listen in earlier because I didn't have any Wi-Fi, and it's spotty right now because I'm losing it again.
No
But-
problem.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, I will take another 10 minutes. I'll just watch to see if we get any more participation or any additional testimony slips. Please let me know. We can stop the recording and I'll come back in about less than 10 minutes, probably 7 or 8 minutes. All right, it's just a few minutes before our public hearing is formally going to come to an end. I just want to once again offer Lisbon the opportunity to make any concluding comments. Has your stance changed, or are we still no comment is the best comment?
We doubled down on everything we've said so far.
All right, sounds good. I just want to remind people that we will be taking additional written information, written testimony through August 1st. You can send your materials to the Wisconsin Municipal Boundary Review at wi.gov email address, or the address shown at the bottom of the agenda, which is in the back of the room. Just a reminder that no decision on the incorporation petition is being made today. So you don't have to worry about that. Our decision is due by November 11th of 2022. So we will be doing that. But in the meantime, we do have 2 additional meetings of the Incorporation Review Board on this matter before that final decision is rendered. So we will be working to get that on the schedule. And during those next 2 meetings, we will be talking about how we see the petition faring, asking questions, and then those answers and any additional materials will help us make that decision, which is again due in November. Thank you for everyone who participated in today's hearing. I appreciate hearing from you, and I appreciate the presentation from Lisbon. Thank you, board members, for participating today. It is now officially 6 o'clock, so unless I hear of any additional testimony slips, there are none. I am going to officially call this public hearing ended at 6 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone.